Thank you, Abraham. I've thanked you many times out loud. I'm sure you've heard me. My question is actually an extension of your first conversation.
Really?
3 years ago, I was in an Abraham workshop, and I had the magic. I was on my high-flying disc. I felt like gold, and I heard a voice. And the voice said, "Adopt a child." And that was not something that I felt like I asked for or desired. And it's been very confusing for me the last 3 years. And
why?
Well, I think based on your first conversation today, it feels like maybe I've not come to resonance with Source.
So let's talk about this a little bit. You felt like you were really tuned in, tapped in, turned on.
Absolutely.
And you heard a voice. Now, this comes back to what we're talking about. In other words, trust or faith. Did I hear it? Did I make it up? Was it meant to be literal?
Yes.
When you heard that, what was your immediate response to it? We know it's been a while, and you may not be able to remember, but what was your immediate response to what you heard?
Surely that message wasn't for me.
All right, so doubt entered in right away, so it could not have been possibly a clear message, and the fact that doubt came right then means there was doubt in the mix. So from that experience, you could come to understand that you were on a high-flying disc, or it felt like it. Are you following what we're getting at? In other words, when you get an impulse and you're really tuned in and you're really hearing all of the subtle nuances of what non-physical is guiding you toward, you feel it through and through. Things ripple up and down your body. You feel ecstasy about it. The feeling about it is so strong you just can't beat a path to the door fast enough to make it happen. But when confusion is there and resistance is there and aversion is there and this can't possibly be right, that's guidance too, isn't it? That's guidance too. And how are you going to learn to ride a bicycle if you don't get on and tip it over a few times? How are you going to know? How are you really going to know what you're hearing from source energy? Have you heard us say that it's the feeling and then the manifestation? Well, that emotion was a manifestation, wasn't it? Really, what we're talking about in all of this gathering, in all of these gatherings, what we're always talking about, you have heard us say, we know you've heard us say it many times because we say it constantly. You never get it done and you can't get it wrong. And so, did you go right out and adopt somebody?
No.
All right, so what's the problem? You thought you heard guidance. So are you having a crisis of, well, I thought I was tuned in and I must not have been? Or is it a wiser understanding? I thought I was hearing clearly, but then there was confusion in the way I felt. And whenever there's confusion in the way I felt, that lets me know I must not have been hearing clearly. And I was wise enough not to follow something I thought I heard because the way I felt gave me guidance that it must not be for me. That's the thing about going to a psychic or going to someone else who reads for you. They get stuff like that mixed up all the time. Many times the message that they're giving to you is their message to them. Mm-hmm. When you are tapping into these non-physical energies, that's why our guidance to you is to align with your guidance. We don't want you to listen to what we're telling you to do because we never tell you to do anything. We encourage you to understand how the laws of the universe work and how to tune into your guidance system, but you got to show yourself. The way you come to know and trust is by having the feeling and following it and then seeing how it plays out. It really is. So often humans, you don't give yourself a chance to make a mistake. And we don't even call it mistakes. How would it be in this physical world that you live in if there were laws and rules that someone could enforce that says, you've been chosen for this and you better get it right with no training at all? Esther watched on the television yesterday young people on bicycles riding off the tops of mountains in Utah off those cliffs and flying through the air to catch the next cliff, and then flying through the air to catch the next cliff. Esther kept looking away. She trusted their belief in themselves, but most of it she could not watch. They were turning somersaults in the air and then landing on jagged edges of cliffs, and then off they would go again. Well, you know, they didn't start out on those cliffs. They started out on other things. They showed themselves. They trained themselves into trust of their agility. They trained themselves into their trust of their agility. And this is what you are doing. You're training yourself into your trust of your emotional agility, which means you got to be willing to let yourself feel, and you got to know what you feel means. And then you just get more sure and more sure, more faith and more faith, more trust and more trust. We're not asking you to reach for trust in source, but you've got to. How are you going to know? How do you even know for sure that source is there? We can tell you that, but words don't teach. It's that feeling of magic like you felt. You knew you were connected to something, and you knew what that felt like. And then you thought, you received a thought, and it didn't feel like that, did it? That's guidance too. If there's something that you want to get good at, it's your understanding of your alignment, yes?
Wow. This is so great. Thank you. I have always felt your presence in my life as a guiding light, as a guiding emotion.
We're going to say that in a slightly different way. Abraham, because you were so stubbornly consistent and you never varied in the vibration that you were offering, when I got close to recognizing you, your steadiness made it easy for me to hone in on you.
Amen.
That's what we were talking earlier. That's what you all have going on. Your inner being will never calibrate to you just to make you feel better.
That's correct. That's correct. And I have also felt this through attracting others to be a vehicle to others that are seeking for wisdom. And I guess I'm curious, or I want to dig a little bit more into this interaction, the co-creation, which is so much fun, because I often find myself saying things that I had never thought before, but I feel them, and it's sort of like people elicit that from me.
When you say that, a lot of people say that, and it's their way of reaching for validation that they really are receiving. And you don't need that validation. You don't need to say that. As we've been moving forward here today, almost everyone who has sat in that chair has said things that they didn't mean to say.
Sure.
The conversation got them tuned in, and they got into a receiving mode, and they began receiving beyond what their ideas about the conversation were.
So maybe it's about being there and being able to also be a witness.
A witness of
the interaction, because a lot of times it's like it's a wisdom beyond what I think I know, but it comes through me.
Yes.
And that's what's beautiful and fascinating, is that I'm almost feel like I say it out loud and I'm hearing it at the same time.
Yes.
And that's part of what I'm super grateful for.
Yes.
Because it's something that has happened, and that I maybe there were times that it was a little annoying because people were always seeking advice from me and I didn't understand that it was more of me being able to co-create in a way that was also for me to connect to my inner being.
You have a good connection,
yeah.
And you can trust what's flowing. And our encouragement to you not in guidance or suggestion, but in answer to a question that we can feel bubbling that you haven't articulated, is that you already know this, but we're going to say it to you anyway. Be aware of where you are before the process begins, because you can translate energy. You can translate vibration into thought. You just want to always translate their inner being's information to them, not whatever they've got going on. And when people have defined you as wise, and you are, and they're looking to you for solutions and answers and guidance, they're not usually trending in alignment with their inner being. And they can dissuade you without you even knowing that it's happening, because it can be very heady to begin receiving, because that receiving, whether it's coming from the upper or the lower half of the emotional scale, the momentum of it is exciting. We're just talking about the meditation prior and the making sure of where you're at, especially if it's people that you know. If it's not people you know, the preparation is way easier, because they don't hook into you vibrationally in the same way. But as it's people that you know, it's easy to channel what they think rather than what their inner being is guiding them to. You're following?
True.
Yeah.